Welcome to the Growth Ventures Podcast, the go-to platform for entrepreneurs, innovators, and changemakers. I'm your host, Hamlet Azarian. In this podcast, we delve into the world of business, technology, and innovation. We bring you conversations with industry leaders, disruptors, and visionaries who are shaping the future and making a difference. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply a curious listener, join us on the journey of learning and growth. Welcome to the Growth Ventures Podcast. And now, let's delve into today's episode. Welcome to another episode of the Growth Ventures Podcast, where we dive into the journeys of entrepreneurship and leaders who are shaping the future of innovation and growth. I'm your host, Hamlet Azarian, and today I'm thrilled to join by a truly inspiring guest, Julia Enthoven, co-founder and CEO of Kapwing, one of the fastest growing platforms for online video and multimedia editing. Julia's journey is a remarkable one. After starting her career as a product manager at Google, she took the leap into entrepreneurship, co-founding Kapwing in 2018. What started as a simple tool to create memes and short videos has since evolved into a powerful platform used by millions of creators, brands, and influencers around the world. Along the way, Julia has navigated the challenges of building a startup from the ground up, raising capital, and leading a rapidly growing team, all while maintaining a clear vision for the future of content creation. In today's conversation, we're going to explore the key moments in her journey, the strategies that have driven Kapwing's success, and her insights into the evolving landscape of digital media. Julia, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for that kind intro and for having me.
Of course. So Julia, part of what we like to do is kind of go into sections in our podcast. Initially, we want to kind of get the groundwork of what's going on, and then obviously we're going to get into the stories of the lessons you've learned along the way. So can you tell us about the early days of Kapwing? What was the initial spark or problem you identified that led you to create the platform?
Sure. So the initial spark came from just our own personal experience using incumbent video editors, things like iMovie and Adobe Premiere. My co-founder, Eric, and I were working at Google at the time, and we basically noticed that people were sharing a lot more videos online, and you could see in Google search traffic how much more often people were looking for videos too, for tons of new business and consumer categories. But at the same time, most of the sort of available software for video creation was really intimidating and hard to learn and required sort of technical skills or just this heavyweight software that you installed onto your computer. And so, we saw this gap in the market for a video creation tool that was really intuitive and fast and that enabled a team, like a marketing or a communications team that makes a lot of video, to work together. So as you mentioned, the journey started with a very specific use case, which was making memes. This was back in 2017, like memes where you put text right above a video were really popular, but people were literally downloading like Adobe Premiere in order to make them. So
that's
our very
crazy.
first
like
tool
a heavy
was
bloated software just to be able to create memes.
Exactly. That was totally misaligned from meme maker culture. But more generally, it was misaligned from sort of consumer culture of wanting to be able to make video quickly and easily, just like you write a Word doc in Google Docs or something like that. So at the very beginning, it was just the two of us. We were working together, coding, iterating on this idea. And
had you guys already left Google, or like was there a moment where like, okay, this is it, we want to work on this? Or was this sort of like a side hustle, a side project while you were still had your, let's say, day jobs at Google?
So no, we had left Google. So I left Google in the summer of 2017, and we sort of promised ourselves that we would work until the end of the year, until December, and giving us that, like, having that time box of like, we're not going to look at other job opportunities. We're not going to think about going back to work until the end of the year meant that we could really put our heads down and like focus on building out the business, even when the market signals were unclear. And at the same time, not feel like nervous about, how much we were burning into our own savings. That was how we started. And by December of that year, we were making $2,000 a month.
Wow.
And I had to decide whether I was going to turn down my return offer into big tech, or if I was going to really commit and, keep going with this nascent idea. And we decided to keep going.
Let's talk a little bit about that. I'm sure that was not easy, right? Here you were struggling. You had left an incredible job. I'm sure this was not an easy conversation at home to mom and dad and explain this to them, right?
It's definitely not.
And so walk me through, and I'm guessing you were not the only one in the market at that time. There was probably other people trying to do a variation of this. So walk me through what were some of the challenges you guys were facing as a whole, and how did you guys see past that and say, no, we're going to stick through this, that we see an opportunity here.
So the market was not nearly as crowded back then. There were tons of these Google search queries for video editing terms where someone was clearly looking for a video editing solution, and there was no online um, solution. There was just instructions on how to use, iMovie or something. And so that was how we started at the beginning of that first in 2018. We like went through all of those different basically verbs, things like trim video, add subtitles to video, resize video, and created web applications that served those needs and distributed on Google search.
So you were more creating like little tool sets that you could do different parts of what was needed to be done. Okay, got it.
Exactly. And it wasn't until we had 12 of those different one-off tools. Again, we were bootstrapping, we had raised money at that point, that we sort of saw there was a larger opportunity for basically building a unified video editor that really served all of these different like one-off tasks in the same place, that was more accessible, easier to use and learn, things like that. So I would say,
you weren't able to monetize, it sounds like it was just free resources, free tools. Is that kind of the initial onset? And were you like getting AdSense revenue, or how were you actually monetizing?
so on every Kapwing video, there was a watermark that we embedded during export. If you wanted to remove the watermark, you had to pay us.
Got it.
So it was free to use, but we did monetize. That's how we were making that like $2,000 a month in that December of 2017. Now, obviously, the market is way more crowded. There's many more like online video editing solutions. There's companies like CapCut, namely, that went to the web in 2022. There's others like InVideo that have started since we started. And definitely like that has been a challenge more recently for us is, how do we stay innovative and continue to innovate in a very crowded space? We also raised a lot less money than our competitors. So although we have raised money, we haven't raised nearly as much as this company Veed in London or a company InVideo in India. And so as a result of that, we just can't run ads. We really rely on our community to champion Kapwing, and on organic content marketing, and on building new products faster than others can. So we have really like a product-led growth strategy that has been profitable, but it has definitely been a challenge in a very crowded market.
I definitely want to get into all of that but in a little bit later, and how you've kind of done that. But let's kind of talk about it sounds like you and your co-founder worked together at Google. You came from the product side, he engineering side, I'm guessing the technical side. What were some of the things that, because of your collaboration already, how did that help you guys? You were a 1-2 punch early on, and you just talked about you were competing with other companies that probably had more funding, had more capacity. What do you think that gave you guys sort of like the competitive edge over others? And was it part of how you guys were able to move faster, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So I think that really one thing that set us apart in a huge way at the beginning was we had both worked on Google search. So we deeply understood SEO and basically the opportunity for websites that rank on Google, and sort of like how to rank on Google. And it's not like we were gaming the algorithm. I write about SEO a lot on our blog, but we were just really focused on SEO from the very beginning. And that continues to be a huge advantage for us because, SEO kind of it also like your rankings naturally increase over time as you gather more and more backlinks. I would say that like we also discovered that some of our skills outside of just software engineering were valuable. So like, for example, I love to write and I've been a writer my whole life. I like minored in creative writing um, in school. And, that writing like turned out to be a big part of our early growth journey because of SEO, writing for the blog, and also doing interviews and things like that. And Eric is an excellent designer. He's really good at sort of building web pages and thinking about visual design. He runs our design team now. So I think that was a big advantage too in terms of SEO and some of our early press stunts and things like that. And yeah, I would say those two things were big advantages for us. And then I often say that the luckiest thing that ever happened to Kapwing, the best thing that ever happened to us, was that our very first employee, who we hired in the fall of 2018, is an engineer named Josh Grossberg. And he was really crucial as a technical leader on our team for many, many years, building out our infrastructure, our cloud video processor, our scaling systems. And scaling was a huge challenge for us, and he was really a pioneer there. So I think the three of us, our skills in sort of like product and marketing, design and front end engineering, and like back end and infrastructure, it was really like a triangle that helped us to grow the team and ultimately, get ahead in the market.
I love that. So you took, just to summarize, you took what you were already doing at Google, some elements of it, which was product management, but you had a really balanced team, right? And you guys really pushed not just the one vertical of things you can do, but what the complementary skills were. And you all knew your lanes and you all knew what you were really good at, and you trusted each other, and you were able to move really quickly and be able to build products that were, SEO optimized per se. You knew what the market needed, and you were really zoning in on what the true pain points was. There was a gap in the market. Is that a good summation of it?
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. So let's talk a bit about the mindset shift, right? Like, you were a product manager, you were working at a large company, probably any company. If you ask any product manager that they want to end up, Google's probably one of them, right? It's definitely up there. And here you are now that you've switched over and you're at a startup is probably the better way to describe it. What shifted in your own mindset to be able to do this? Was there something there, or how did you transition yourself so you could ensure that you wouldn't give up and you would persevere through to make sure the startup would become successful?
Yeah, so I would say like two things I often say when people join Kapwing that are sort of, I think, the essence of the startup mindset. The first one is just tending towards action. So like you just have to take, like, if there's something that needs to be done, everything from like you need to take the trash out in the office to like you need to, respond to this cold email or something, to you need to, figure out how to do a marketing launch. Everything when you're a founder is your responsibility. And so I think just like having a bias towards doing things, even if it's not perfect, even if you have no idea what you're doing, is a huge piece of what makes someone successful at a startup. Basically, just bias towards action, being really proactive. The second thing is, I think, just turning disappointments and rejection into just like opportunities for learning and growth, and kind of like being able to put a positive spin on the challenge of just the big challenge of like starting something from scratch is crucial. So finding someone who's optimistic, and just like in yourself when you become a founder, like just actively reframing and bringing yourself above the line again, is crucial. So I would say those two things have been so important. I think more tactically, like when you're a founder and when you're starting any business, every entrepreneur knows this. You have to think about what your service is and what your product is, and also how you're going to distribute it or how you're going to find new users and customers. And you also need to think about how you're going to make money. So it's not just finding someone who wants your thing, but who will actually pay money for it. And oftentimes, I think founders will overbalance for one of those things depending on their background. So if they're a marketer, they really just think about the marketing side and not really the product as much. And if they're a product person like I was, or an engineer, they really just think about making the product perfect and not about distribution as much. And I actually think in today's market, distribution is the most important problem, is the hardest one. And so I think that like, just if you're a product person or an engineer, like the question must be constantly like, how are we going to get people to use it? And I think that is a huge, for Eric and I, that was a challenge. And it was, I think it's a huge challenge I often hear from in founders as they're
I
starting out.
love, yeah, that is, I've heard that in so many of the podcasts already, is like engineering now has become, especially with the advancement of AI and all the tools available, there really is, it's not that hard to get things built anymore compared to what it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? So the biggest challenge has really turned into is distribution. How do you get in front of the right people at the right time? How do you make sure you're in front of the right segment, as you shared, that is willing to pay? It's not just everybody, and so on and so forth. I 100% agree. And to summarize for some of the earlier things you said, I love it, exactly that, right? You're the wearer of many hats. You can't let perfection stop you from action. You got to really execute. I'm kind of summarizing some of the things you said. 100% agree with all of those different things. And the nice insight is you can't let negativity bring you down, right? You have to continue to be optimistic and wanting to learn, and failure is an opportunity of learning and giving you that. I love all that. That's incredible what a culture you guys have built. Now kind of moving into your leadership as a whole. How big is the team now? Like, how big have you guys gotten?
Right now we have about 32 people across San Francisco and New York.
Okay, so you as a leader, 32 people, I'm sure this is the first time in your life you're managing 32 people. What have you learned along the way? How have you been able, that's a pretty sizable team, right? Going from working with a small group to having 32 in several years. Walk me through some of the challenges along with bringing team members in, and what are some insights you've learned along the way there?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a ton about being a leader. I think that one thing is that I was a first-time people manager. So, there's probably lots of people have experienced that for the first time, sort of transitioning from doing things yourself to delegating to other people. And I have learned a huge amount, as I've done that. I think that some things I've learned about that, for example, are you need to sort of like highlight someone's genius instead of like focusing on their flaws, like trying to sort of like shape a role around what they're just exceptional at, rather than, and trying to help them also find what their genius is. I think that another aspect of how I've changed on this front is letting certain.
Have you heard of StrengthsFinder? Or are you familiar with that or no?
Yes, yeah, I am. Yeah.
So as you were saying that, it reminded me of that, right? Like the Gallup test that you can take, the StrengthsFinder, you can see what your genius is and what you're really great at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for me, a big part of that, and many other founders and first-time managers, is finding the things that you can let go. So for me, for example, like letting go of customer support was really a challenge. I used to answer every single customer support ticket, and it was really hard for me to like hire someone who I trusted. I interviewed so many people, and then eventually like build a team around our customer support function.
I mean, like if you ask most people, they're like, man, customer support, what did you get out of it? Is it, did you learn something new from answering the support tickets? Like what was wrong with the product, what they really wanted? Was it?
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing that lit me up, that still to this day, there's nothing that lights me up at work more than talking to a customer. I mean, just talking to someone who they have a problem, they really need you to solve it, and Kapwing is like the best solution for what they're doing. I mean, that is just such a motivating conversation for me. So, and also I'm not exactly sure why, but I think that when you're the founder, you know so much about your own product, you know all the operational systems. And it was a challenge for me to be like, okay, I'm going to hire people and train them, and they're not going to know everything, but they're going to learn over time and I think it's just a challenge for every first-time manager, like giving up some things and knowing what are the things that you can let go. And customer support was one of the things that I needed to let go. And I think that could be scaled to many other problems, code and code quality. For example, I stopped coding basically a couple of years ago. our testing, manual testing in QA. That was something I let go of like 3 or 4 years ago. And I think as a founder, you have to pick, like, here are the things that I will not let go of, and here are the things that I will. For example, for me, one of the things I've not let go of yet is our SEO, like just basically how we rank on search. So, as a founder, you have this, it's not like being at a big company. You don't let everything go and you just lead, and you just, like, with a company of 32 people, there's a lot of things I still do, but I have learned to let go of things so that I can make more time and focus for myself.
Perfect. Let's talk about the thing that you haven't let go. It's come up twice now. SEO obviously is a core of what you guys do really well in terms of go-to-market strategies. I mean, you worked on the search team, but I'm guessing like everybody else, it's a trial and error, and you kind of have been working through it and figuring things out. Can you give me some of the lessons you've learned along the way in regards to search, and what do you think allows you guys to be so successful at it while many others are still struggling or trying to figure out how to be great at it?
I think that, like, we have the sort of, there's a lot of things that come together. There's SEO has both like a technical side and a creative side. And so I think that Eric and I, because of our like background in writing and design, we sort of have both of those, and also in software engineering, like both sides together. So, we can kind of think about what are some ways that we could grow our presence on search online. Like, we could create new web pages that rank for certain queries. So a tactical example of this is, this summer, Charlie XCX, the pop artist, tweeted after Kamala was named, or like after Biden dropped out of the race, that like Kamala is brat. And this was, the album cover of her album was a green thing with the word brat on it, a green square. And I, like, that night, it just occurred to me that like people are going to try to make this, make this meme. Basically, they're going to try and turn that word brat into whatever else. And I saw some examples on social media. And so I made that with our in-house CMS really quickly. Like, within 2 minutes, I had like a brat meme generator up. And that brat meme generator has like,
this is like
hasn't
youth
gotten
hacking
us.
to the finest. This is like an SEO tactic strategy, and look at that.
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah,
listening in, she heard a major thing. She already had an intuition of what was going to be happening, and overnight she was already
exactly.
reacting on it. But the bias towards action, really paying attention to her user base, and really knowing what they would want, what they would need. All of those years of listening into the customer support tickets. I love that. That's a great example.
Yeah, and it just earns backlinks from across the internet, when you do that news hacking. So I realized I got a little tactical there, but my point is that, when you kind of you need to have both the right and the left brain to be great at SEO, and you need to have respect for both sides.
I love that. Let's kind of go a little bit more on strategy and vision. And we've kind of talked a little bit about this, but community building a little bit, like it's a key part of what you guys do, right? You have incredible users that are loyal, that you have been using your products for years. What have you guys done to foster this? How have you gone about building a community overall? And what are some lessons you can provide there?
Oh my gosh, I have so many lessons about this to share. So I would say that, first of all, like, the most genuine, direct form of building community is exactly what we're doing right here, which is just like a face-to-face conversation, just like meeting people, seeing their face, learning more about their life and their journey, and just who they are and why they're making videos for the first time. Like, those are the most valuable things I've done to form community. And if I was talking to a founder, I like, who's just starting out, and I was giving myself a pep talk, I would say, like, just have face-to-face conversations with more people, more customers, more users, potential users, etc. So that's the first thing. And some of these people that I've talked to and built relationships with over the years have been major advocates for Kapwing, like Brian White, who runs a YouTube channel called Media Zeus. He's been a major affiliate and friend of Kapwing's. He gives us beta like feedback. He's amazing, and he's been growing a YouTube channel and also helping us to sell Kapwing. When it comes to the more tactical side of how do you get down to it and like hire for community building and scale a community, I would say that we certainly have not cracked this nut. We have a Slack group that's called Kapwing Champions, where we invite some of these sort of like power users, advocates, influencers, and affiliates. It's just invite only. We have direct conversations with people. But we have tried just about everything else. I feel like we've tried a Discord, a Facebook group. We have a YouTube community of 200,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. And it is hard to foster like the direct sort of like community interactions unless you have like a really vibrant community leader, which takes a lot of time. So I don't have that much advice about it other than the hiring a really vibrant community leader and not underpaying them is super important. And finding people who have that skill of nurturing relationships with a community can help to create that.
I love that. I'm wondering if some of this might bleed into my next question is, I mean, you guys have a lot of features, and I'm sure you have as a good product manager, I'm sure you have a big product roadmap as well with more features that you guys potentially want to build. How do you go about, and this is a challenge I think some startups have, right? How do you go about prioritizing it? How do you know which feature is the one that you should be focused on? And what is overall your process that you guys have done that has allowed you to not overbuild per se and build in a timely manner where the market really needs it?
Yeah, so I would say that, probably every company has their own challenges on this, but for us, our challenge has been, like how do we make sure that we're building in the right domain and all moving in one direction? And I think right now our prioritization process really looks like picking a few key workflows, like 2 per year, that we want Kapwing to be like the best for, that we want it to be, the number one X. And this year in 2024, that is repurposing marketing content. So sort of like going from a long form video or an existing article to short form video. So repurposing to short form video and dubbing videos. So basically translating video content into different languages.
Awesome. So like we could, for example, take this podcast, slice it up, have it in multiple languages. Can we write articles with it too? Or can we do all that?
No, you can't write articles, but you could take an article and turn an article into a video on Kapwing. And that's just, helping people to basically grow their audience using short form video. I'm not sure if you guys are doing that already, but you definitely should be. And you can use Kapwing's Repurpose Studio to take your podcast episodes and trim them down to short form video.
Hold on, Mari, Anahit, you guys are listening to this right now. We have to go check this out. So.
Definitely. But yeah, we always have basically like 50% of our engineering team like allocated towards our core infrastructure and reliability. And then the other 50% are sort of working on building the best like dubbing suite or the best repurpose studio. And I think that has helped us. In past years, it's been different. So like in different years, and maybe in 2025, repurpose will still be the main, so maybe that'll last multiple years. But helping us have that clear objective on what is the use case and who's the user helps us to build a great, to prioritize features and build really a great product in that area.
Awesome. Obviously AI is everywhere. Like at this point, it is synonymous with everything going on, especially in our world with content creation and the emergence of it. How do you see this impacting you guys? I know you have some features there, and how do you overall see the future of content creation evolving, and where do you see Kapwing fitting into all of this?
Yeah. So, I mean, the evolution in AI technologies has been amazing in the last couple of years, and it has really changed our business. I would say 2 things here that feel obvious to me. One is that a major challenge with video creation is what we call the blank canvas problem. So, someone knows that they want to create a video or want to create a set of videos. They don't know what to make and what to create. And that is something that AI can help so much with. Same thing with ChatGPT, right? If you need to write a thank you note for this situation or whatever, you can go to ChatGPT and get a blank draft that then you can use, or get a first draft that then you can use to edit.
Or a
Same thing with Kapwing.
Valentine's note. I've done it many times for my wife.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so many different, you know, use cases. But I think that for Kapwing, the same thing can be said for video creation. So if you're making a video for the first time, or if you are a marketer who needs to make a high quantity of videos, you can come to Kapwing's AI video generator and start with a prompt, and it will generate a video for you. By pulling in stock video from across the web and using generative technologies and just giving you a script to start from. And we think that that's that sort of like getting over the blank canvas is a really inspiring moment for a creator. The second thing I would say is like, it's fun to collaborate with AI to sort of like get ideas from it, bounce ideas off of it. And I think that we think a lot about that within Kapwing, like, you know, if you could generate images or, you know, generate a script within Kapwing, like those things can help you also to sort of get new ideas and bring the ideas into what you're doing. And then the third thing I would say here is AI has been around for a long time. You know, machine learning has been around too. And just automating tedious workflows in like video creation is something that Kapwing does super well. So subtitling videos, you know, translating captions, cutting out silences, removing filler words, like cleaning the audio of your video. These are just 5 examples of AI powered workflows that just help creators save time, which is really our bottom line.
That's phenomenal.
So yeah, I would say those things
are all these built into your pricing model, or is each feature like priced separately, or how do you guys do it?
It's challenged, and I would say our pricing model is constantly under development. We have 3 tiers of a subscription model, so all of it is priced into those tiers.
Phenomenal. I mean, I am already excited to start using more Kapwing, more all of these different workflows. Where do you see general? I mean, obviously, you guys are an essential tool for content creators, so that, in a sense, gives you a good read of where content is headed. What are some like trends that you see emerging, new trends in content creation that are starting to come up? You know, obviously you were there when memes were big, and now video is becoming bigger. What are some insights you can give to other content creators that might be listening in?
Yeah, I think that you know, lip sync technology is really impressive, and I think that we're going to see more and more use cases of being able to generate footage without needing to record footage or tweak footage that you've already made by sort of adding in sentences and things like that. So you could imagine a future where, you know, these interviews could be done asynchronously, you know, where like you could record your half or I could record my half, or we could just write the answers and have like our 2 like AI personas talking to each other.
That would be so boring.
It could be very boring, but you can imagine a lot of use cases where like content kind of, I mean, this is like an entertaining podcast, and we tell stories,
Right.
you know, but for example, like a video which like explains an HR policy, it needs to be up to date always. And, you know, it might be nice to have visual consistency with all the other policy videos. So that might be an example where like being able to just keep it up to date and make sure it's on script is more valuable than being entertaining. So yeah, I just think creators should look out for lip sync and how that's going to change their workflows.
So lip sync is basically being able to take a digital version of yourself or whatever it might be, and you type it up, and then that generates the actual video itself, correct?
Yeah, maybe like yes, exactly that. I mean, an even better use case might be like, let's say you were inserting an ad into your video, like a long form video, you know, but you haven't recorded it yet, or you need to make a change because your advertising partner asked you to make a change. Like you might be able to use this kind of like persona to update a section of your video rather than needing to do the whole recording again from scratch. So yeah, there's various examples of this that I think will become more and more relevant over time.
Amazing. Let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to transition this to your funding. I know you brought this up. I took some notes on this earlier. You haven't had as much funding as others in this space, so it's probably forced you guys to be much more bootstrap minded than necessarily some of your competitors in the world. Can you talk to me a little bit about some of the decisions you guys have had to make because of this? And is this how this is how you guys want to run the organization, or what are some of the challenges people should be aware of in today's market when they're trying to fundraise?
I mean, that's such a big question. I don't think like I can speak generally to this use case, but or generally to any founder. But for us, we uh, having more of a bootstrapped mindset means that we never like dramatically overhired. We didn't spend a lot of money on ads that we couldn't afford, and we kind of grew in a sustainable way. And honestly, I feel like that has been a better fit for Eric and I's like personality. We're more like product and engineering minded, more focused on product led growth. So it was the more natural approach for us. I think that I can't say necessarily. I mean, it forced us to like find new avenues of product market fit, where we could
Total, how much have you
grow.
raised? Is it 13 million? Is that
We've
12.7?
raised, yes, yeah, 12.7 across 2 rounds of funding. We raised money in 2018, at the very, very end of 2019, beginning of 2020. So yeah, we raised money. We hired our first engineers. Those people were absolutely necessary to grow Kapwing to what it is today, as I already mentioned. But after that, like now we're profitable. This is of course like 6 years later, 4 years later, I guess. We're profitable. We don't depend on raising money. We don't depend on marketing or running paid ads in order to grow. But I also think that it it allows you to be more experimental when you have more money in the bank, because you can experiment with, oh, what would happen if we brought on this social media agency to like run our social media, or what would happen if I gave up customer support to this outside agency. So I do think you can kind of move faster if you can be more experimental with your tactics. That's what money gives you, is that kind of peace of mind.
Got it. And obviously on 13 million, getting to profitability is a remarkable achievement. There's so many companies that are not able to do that. And part of why you think you guys were able to do that is at the same time while you raised, you kept the bootstrap mentality, right? Is that kind of a good summation of it, or?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say like probably like a bootstrap founder listening to this is like eye roll, like, your
You're
team
like,
grew to like
no, 13
35
million is
people. Yeah,
gold. Are you kidding me?
please. Which I totally appreciate. I think that, and I have met, billionaire founders that completely bootstrapped their business from scratch, like John Oranger at Shutterstock, for example, whose business really relies on SEO too. And I think that it just enabled us, rather than because Eric and I have control of the business, we can run it the way we want to. We have more options about the future of the business, and we're less stuck, running the business, in the sense that like now we can be more flexible and experiment with new products and launch things as we want to, rather than really like being beholden to a timeline from venture capitalists. So yeah, we have avoided some of the like major stressors that some of our other founder friends have had to confront. I think that there's also many venture-backed companies that have amazing boards and partners. So I think it's sort of about the business you want to run and the partners that you have the option to work with.
Is there pressure from your current investors to figure out an exit strategy, or I mean, you're already profitable. I mean, where is this headed? What is the future of
Definitely, yeah, I mean, definitely there's, pressure from investors in the sense that there's lots of investors who put money into Kapwing, and they were early funds. It was one of their first or second funds, and Kapwing is one of their best businesses in their portfolio, and they really would like to see a return so that they can return that to their LPs and raise more money. And I think that we definitely feel that pressure too. Like, for example, like Village Global has been like an amazing partner to us. It's an amazing fund, and we were one of their very first, investments. So there's pressure in that sense. I think that it's not like active pressure. They know that we're trying our best, and it's crowded market and a bunch of other things. And where is this headed? I mean, what we're trying to do is build products that have new growth levers that allow us to unlock like new massive growth opportunities. And if we can do that, we will raise more money. and really try to win in those new spaces. So dubbing and like AI video generation are really our two bets, as I mentioned here. And that's really our focus. It's like, can we unlock new growth verticals there?
Awesome. Looking back now, I mean, you've been at this for a while, right? And you've done incredibly well. I'm sure there were some mistakes made along the way. So if you could have the beauty of hindsight, what would you go back to day one of starting and telling yourself, just avoid this. Do not even do this. What are some things what are some advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think like one thing that I have learned is just that letting people go, like letting the wrong people go earlier. Um, I've learned so much about that in my time of running Kapwing. Like there have been a few occasions, especially early on, when I knew that we had the wrong person in the role and I just let it go on for too long. Um, I'll give an example of like an engineer. This is the first person I ever fired, and it was terrible. And I'm not going to give too many specifics about it, but I really, really wanted them to be successful. And for like months, we were really pushing them, but there was a lot of conflict because they were trying their best and they just needed more support and they needed more like mentorship that we just didn't have time to give. And eventually we did fire this person and they went on to work as an engineer at Slack, which is a huge company that has way more mentorship and support, starting as like an associate engineer. And then they were promoted like a year and a half later, and then they have continued to grow their career at Slack. And so that was one example where I mean, this is the first person that I ever fired, but really learned that like if we had just like this person was not happy or successful at Kapwing and we were not happy with them, and it just would have been so much less emotional burn if I had let them go earlier. So I think like that's one major mistake I have made is just not letting the wrong people go. Like when I knew they were the wrong person, like I should have just made the decision to let them go. I think I also made mistakes in the opposite direction where we had someone who was really good and that we just weren't paying them like to reflect how good they were because I was sort of too stuck on like, oh, but this is where the market salary is and this is where these things are. And like in those cases, those people have often just, when someone is really good, like they open and create opportunities for themselves. And I think I regret like not just like really paying our like top employees well. And I would say I have like righted that. I feel like now we have a different philosophy towards pay levels and stuff. And like we really try to pay our top performers extremely well. And so those are two very tactical things. It's kind of awkward and hard to talk about, but I feel like that's why it's so important to talk about because
Yeah.
just having critical conversations and honoring how much value someone is adding is so important. And then, yeah, I mean, I guess, more philosophically, I would say to my younger self, just like enjoy the journey the whole time because you get, like I said, positivity is such an important part of the entrepreneur mindset. And you get in the messy middle, you're like caught up in the grind of growing the startup and constantly focusing on the next milestone, the next thing to build. And it can distract you from just, expressing gratitude every single day and enjoying and celebrating the wins. Now we have a props channel in our Slack, and I try to be just like the most frequent contributor. I try to be like, okay, at least like 4 times a week, I need to be like giving people specific props in Slack. And that's just one small thing, but more broadly, don't get too caught up in the grind set, like,
Have fun, right?
really try to celebrate.
Still continue having fun, celebrating the small wins.
Yep.
I love the advice to your younger self. It's so hard, right? It's you want it to work and you hang on too much, but at the end of the day, it's just if it's not a fit, it's not a fit. You got to cut loose sooner than later for both parties.
For
And then
both parties, absolutely.
and I love the opposite side of it, right? Like really pay your A players what they deserve. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the value that they're creating, how incredible they are, even though they might come in at a different rate, to just don't lose them. Give them the credit that's due and make sure that you right size their salary, even get them above market if you need to get them above market and all of that.
Absolutely.
All wonderful advice. So on your own personal routines or habits, I like to get into a little bit about this as a CEO. What are some of the things that you do that allows you to be able to balance a team of 30, have an incredible startup that's growing really fast? There are tips and tricks you could give other founders that allows you to do so much?
This is just going to be boring because I feel like I'm probably a broken record compared to the whole entrepreneurship community, but it cannot be said enough. Um, Prioritizing sleep and exercise is just so crucial. I mean, I run just about every single day in the morning. I ran this morning. Um, and yeah, when I am like have had a good sleep all week, um, I'm just so much happier and more productive. So cannot be said enough, just like work out and sleep because you will be happier and more productive. I think I've already shared a few of my other habits in this podcast, like around expressing gratitude and having like regular check-ins with my team. Um, but I think that another one I can mention there is just making sure to have balance too in your own life. I don't think that finding ways to make sure your own energy is like honoring and supporting and promoting your own energy is important too. So if you're finding yourself like really in a grind where you just don't want to do the work or it's not lighting you up, then try to delegate or like change your work or figure out like why is it that you're so resistant rather than continuing to just bang your head against the wall.
Julia, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your incredible journey with Kapwing. Man, we talked about a lot of incredible things. Your insights into product development, scaling a startup, navigating the ever evolving world of content creation have been incredible and truly valuable. If our listening audience wants to get a hold of you or chat with you, what's the best way that they can do that? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely people can reach out to me at julia@kapwing.com, which is my email. Um, Also, I'm accessible on X. You can find me at Julia Enthoven, and on LinkedIn, which is where I probably publish the most often. So can come follow along on insights there too.
Perfect. Thank you again, Julia, for being on the show. And to our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to A Growth Ventures podcast and stay tuned for more episodes where we bring the best in business to share their growth stories and insights. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries and chasing the next big venture.